All right, we are live. SCMP Live Chat episode, I believe 3, and I'm your host, Hyon Ko, JHK. Some people like to call me, and of course, to my left or right, I don't even know, whatever way you're looking at it, is DJ Nico. That's his name now on the show. He's behind the ones and twos. So whatever pops up on the screen, that's him. He's doing all the work, man. Appreciate him coming on every week. And our special guest is Mike Heck. Of course, like when I describe Mike Heck, everybody asks me, what do you know about Mike Heck? And I'm like, Mike Heck, man, he's like, if you think about him, he's the breakthrough journalist of the year. If there was ever an award for like that, Mike Heck would be that guy. You know what I mean? Like he has come on the scene, and he's been on the grind for many years now, but he has come on the scene and exploded with MMAfighting.com and his own show, What the Heck. Mike, appreciate you, man. And, the reason why I wanted you to come on the show is because you're a guy that drives me, you know what I mean? And I want to get guys that drive me. And I look at what you're doing and I'm just like, man, I want to do what he's doing, So thank you so much, man.
Yeah, man, the feeling is mutual. Happy to be here. It's been a minute since you and I have done something like this. So, and we were talking a little bit off air that, we get to, we Twitter DM from time to time back and forth, but, being able to catch up and hear your voice and see your face, JHK, it's an honor to be here, sir. Thank you for having me.
No worries, man. And like you said, man, we are so busy just because this sport, man, it's a sport that never has an off season. It never has a downtime, man. So it's hard to kind of just, get into a conversation with some people that are working in the sport. And this is basically the only way to do it is kind of like work and, and conversate at the same time. So that's good, man. Like there's a lot of stuff to talk about, but the first thing I think is that's important to talk about is the commissions, man. Like yesterday, I'm pretty sure you saw Mike, the commission in I believe at the Mohegan Sun. They were doing the weigh-ins and Brendan Gertz. And first of all, Brendan Gertz, I've interviewed Brendan Gertz before, man. He's a great guy, man. Like I've never had any bad interactions with him. And he weighed in on the dot 146, and then the commission, man, like they had an attitude. I don't know where the attitude came from. Maybe there's a backstory to that. But Mike, have you heard anything about this?
I mean, kind of. I mean, I think I saw the video that everybody else saw with Gertz and Mike Mazzulli sort of going back and forth. And listen, I've spoken to Mike Mazzulli many times over the years, being a New England guy and covering some events over there. He is a really nice guy, and I've had chances to spend time with him, but he was absolutely 100% wrong in this situation. And I think he'll be the first one to tell you that. I'm pretty sure one of my colleagues, Steven Morocco, actually reached out, and it turns out Mike actually apologized to Brandon. So I think it's water under the bridge at this point, which is good. But man, that was a bad look early on during the weigh-ins earlier today before Bellator 250. And I think Pete Carroll, former colleague of mine, said it best. If I'm Brandon Gertz and I'm ripped and shredded like that, I'm not trying to wear clothes anyways.
Definitely. That's true. Yeah. But that leads to a bigger question. And in my opinion on commissions is man, they make so many mistakes, man. Like if for being the commission, for being the authority figure of the sport, they just make too many mistakes and a lot of questionable moves too. Let's transition over to last weekend in Abu Dhabi. I don't even know what commission was in charge of the UFC. Maybe the UFC was in charge of themselves, like most of the time when they do go to another country. But man, when I know you were watching it live too, when Khabib weighed in, what did you think about that, man? Did you think he weighed in? Do you think like he made 155?
At the time as I'm watching it, because we were broadcasting during it, and it was like 1:05 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so I was a little out to lunch at the time, but I mean, he looked completely and utterly relieved when he was announced at 155 on the dot. And Khabib has struggled in the past, and normally he's like, okay, I made weight, yay. But this one, he was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I made it. So it raised questions. We replayed it a couple of times, but until I saw the the video from Mike Dolce, and I was like, oh my God, yeah, this is really interesting. Like the thing was going up. But then Daniel Cormier is like, listen, when you're cutting weight and you're hitting an actual mark, the thing's going to go up and back down. They just never let it go back down. So without, and the thing about him retiring too, is that no one really addressed it after the fact. Like Dana White didn't address it. Khabib didn't talk to the media. Justin Gaethje didn't talk to the media. So like no one addressed it at all. So no one really knows what happened, but it was interesting. It was definitely something that needed to be discussed. Some people were like, you're taking this too far. You don't need to go there. You're just trying to dog Khabib, which is not the case. But that was the thing. Like, we're not going to judge it until people who are in the room, people who are decision makers and the taste makers have something to say about it. No one said anything about it. So as far as I'm concerned, all good. Looked a little sketch, but who the hell am I to say anything?
Nobody's trying to dog Khabib, man. I don't understand that narrative. Is like we're trying to dog Khabib. We're talking about the commission. They're the one in charge of, controlling that situation. Controlling the atmosphere. And it seems like I don't know. It was weird. Like that's the only word that I could describe it as weird. Like I've weighed myself on those scales before. You have to get the right weight, you have to balance it out, right? It has to land right in the middle. It doesn't just go up and then, okay. Then you could go to any weight and be like, it goes to the top. Okay, I'm 135. It just goes to the top. I'm 35. I'm 115. You could be 95 pounds at, if you're weighing yourself like that, right? So, yeah, that's a good question. Why didn't anybody address that? Because I guess and it just goes back to what I was saying, like commissions, man. I don't even know why we have commissions. Like, promotions just should commission themselves, man. Like what's the even point of having all of that? Like I don't know, man. It's commissions make so many mistakes, man. And it goes back to the fighters getting busted for like marijuana in Las Vegas. That's just a crock of shit too. Trevin Jones, he's just like, what? Like, did you see the story on Trevin Jones, like how that all played out? Like that there should be like special cases, right? Like the dude made weight in 3 days or 2 days, and he signed all the paperwork and went through everything. It was just like a tornado of just everything, just tornado, just hurricane going around him, and they want to point to this and like take his win away from him. And it was a great win too. Like he came back from hell in the first round and got the finish in the second round. Like think of yourself in that position as Trevin Jones. You know what I mean? Like, Mike, what would you do, man? There's nothing you can do because they have a stranglehold on like Las Vegas, and that's the only two places you can fight now, Las Vegas and Abu Dhabi. So if you have some kind of riff or problem with whoever's running the show, you might not even be able to fight.
It's ridiculous. Like I could, like, no joke, I could literally hop in my car right now, drive 5 minutes away from my house and buy all the weed I want, like without any repercussions. It's like going to the liquor store. It's beautiful. Like if I wanted to go there right now and get some, I could without any problems. So I don't understand why the weed thing is a big deal in 2020. Like it's going to be federally legal in the United States, probably within the next 2 to 3 years. At least I hope it is. I mean, I'm not a big weed smoker or anything like that, but I understand why people take it. It's like, the more research that's done on it, it's not like a performance enhancing drug. It's just absolutely ridiculous. It's not like someone's taking a steroid. There are supplements that are legal on the UFC list that are way more dangerous than smoking a doobie before, like in a training camp to relax and sleep, to get some recovery in your body. My God, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And every time I see a suspension for weed, I'm just like, when are we going to like grow up? Like, when are we going to move past this? It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous.
He was saying that USADA, they didn't suspend him. Nevada suspended him. And if he did something wrong, you would think the UFC would take his bonus from him. UFC didn't take his bonus from him. So the UFC basically has his back. It's the commission in Las Vegas, man. Like, I don't know, man. We could go on forever with this.
There's like one city on earth that shouldn't mind marijuana use. It's Las Vegas. Like,
it's legal, yeah.
So ridiculous. It's just such garbage, man. Like, I can't wait for the day where, these Nevada commission meetings like don't have a couple of fighters on there that like, and you just know by looking at me like, oh, it's definitely a weed thing. Like, it's not a steroid thing. Like, it's if you look at like the next meeting and like who's on the list, you're just like, there's no way either of these guys took steroids. They're definitely like smoked, and took short notice fights, like, and they're gonna get suspended and they're gonna get wins overturned. Like it's so dumb. It's so dumb.
It is dumb. And speaking of weed, and I want to segue to getting busted by commissions and drug testing and all of that stuff. I want to get into this conversation that a lot of people are having now, is like the GOAT conversation and legacy and it's a sensitive topic for a lot of people because they want to go back and forth for like days and days, and even the fighters are going back and forth about this. I wonder, how much does failed drug tests, PEDs, factor into, let's say, Mike, if you're making a list for all-time greats, does it factor into it? How much does it factor into it, if it does?
I think it has to factor somewhat. Like, I don't weigh it. I don't completely take fighters completely off the table. Like, I know on like DC and Helwani show, they each had like two different lists. They had like a PED list and they had a non-PED list. I don't think I would go that far, but I definitely think there's like some demerits to, having a positive drug test and stuff like that, and different things that you've done out of the cage. And I know, like with the Jon Jones argument, like, the positive steroid tests and all this stuff, like at the same time, like it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, Jones was cleared of pretty much all of those infractions anyways, whether he had to be like a snitch or whatnot, it doesn't matter. He was cleared. So like, I don't really take that into account, but the out of the cage stuff and the arrests and the hit and run and all that stuff, like that factors into it. Like Khabib, like didn't make any mistakes at all. He didn't have like a penalty. He didn't bleed. In the octagon. He lost like a round and a half, in my opinion. Like the Conor one, yeah, if you want to give him that round, that's fine. Two judges gave Justin Gaethje that first round, which I found preposterous on Saturday. Like, I understand that Gaethje had, some moments and he landed some big shots, but like, even if you said Gaethje had a slight edge on the feet before Khabib took him down, Khabib took him down and mounted him at the end of that first round and almost pulled off an armbar submission. There's no way Justin Gaethje won that round. It's just outlandish. So like, I understand the GOAT conversation. People are eye rolling at this point. To me, there's a difference between pound for pound and GOAT. Like GOAT is like, we're talking about like the beginning of the sport to where we're at now. And pound for pound is like right now at this very moment. Like right now at this very moment, Khabib deserves to be the number one pound for pound fighter in the world. He's the most dominant fighter on the planet. I know he's retired, but he is right now the most dominant pound for pound fighter on planet Earth. There is no argument there. Now, if we're talking about the GOAT, and I know there are some things that go against Khabib and they're not his fault, I don't have him at number one on my list. He's in the top three. I don't know if I have him at 1, 2, or 3, but I can't like look at Khabib and be like, this is the greatest fighter in the history of the sport. I just can't do it. He's in the conversation, but like right this second, he's the best fighter on earth.
You make some good points right there, man. There is a clear difference between a GOAT, pound for pound, and legacy, right? Legacy, I feel like the PEDs and the out of cage infractions, criminal activities, questionable behaviors. I feel that factors into it, legacy wise. GOAT wise and pound for pound is right now, like what's going on right now. What have you done for me lately? And then GOAT is just looking at the whole career, like overall, what have you done, throughout your career. We're just talking about the UFC. We're not even talking about like Pride and Strikeforce and Bellator and one. We're not talking about those promotions altogether. We're just talking about the UFC. And I think a lot of people there, the lines become blurred. They're just switching back and forth. They don't even really know what they're talking about. At some points, they're just talking about like who they think is just better. And I don't know. I agree with you. Right now, the most dominant fighter on the planet is Khabib right now. Because if you look at his performances you just look at his last 5 fights and against the competition that he's faced versus Jon Jones's last 5 fights in the competition that he has faced. Come on, let's be real. Who's number one? Khabib is number one, pound for pound. So he does deserve to be on the list. But when you talk about, like you said, Mike, agree completely. GOAT, Jon Jones, look at his resume, man. Like, you cannot deny him. You know what I mean? Like, look at GSP. You cannot deny him. You know, like, these guys are above, higher on the list. Demetrius Johnson. Why does everybody forgot about these? He's over at 1. You forgot about him? His resume in one champion or in the UFC, he has records, like on top of records. Then you talk about Anderson Silva. You know what I mean? Like, come on. Why is everybody forgetting about these fighters, man? Like, just because Jon Jones comes out and makes a video, with sour grapes and all of that. I don't know. But the thing is, it's blurred, man. And I don't want to spend too much time on this because I know that every other live chat or show or channel or whatever, they've talked about this probably for like 15 hours straight. But yeah, I just wanted to get your opinion on it. And Nick, what about you? What do you think about this? Like, I just want to get yours, you know what I mean? Because I know you have an opinion on this topic.
Man, well, we talked about it for about an hour the other night, didn't we? Or the other day. Monday, was it, this week?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think, yeah, Khabib, the way Khabib finished all these fights, the dominance he showed in those fights. You got to remember Jon Jones' last 3 wins, I think, were all maybe the Smith one. He dominated that, but it was so close against Santos. You could argue he lost that. Reyes, I believe he lost that fight as well. I'm firmly in Team Khabib, as he calls himself on Twitter. I'm with him in this pound for pound convo. GOAT, yeah, different conversation, isn't it? But I don't want to get into that. You guys, you covered it. I agree with both of you guys, so I'm not going to stir the pot.
The last thing I'll say about it is, listen, if I think Khabib is, and you think Jon Jones is, and you think Anderson Silva is, that's fine. It doesn't matter. Like, there's no need to argue about it. It's so, like, it's to everybody's opinion. People weigh things differently. It's like judging a fight. If there's a very close fight, I might see something different than JHK saw it. Maybe JHK was like, I weigh the takedowns more. Maybe I was like, oh yeah, well, Lila, he landed some short uppercuts against the cage. Like, people weigh things in different way, in different variations, in different ways. That's what this conversation is all about. It's all based on your own perception. It's no need to argue about it. It's stupid to argue about it. You're wasting your time getting mad over something that it's based on your opinion and really your opinion alone. Yeah,
I never get angry. Like I read through Twitter and people are like really angry at each other and emotional on Twitter.
It has to be for active fighters, right? This is the only point where I'll give Jon Jones some credit. It's got to be, you got to be active. If you just go and announce you're retired and you're pound for pound #1 on UFC's list, that's weird, right? Then why wouldn't you have other retired fighters in there?
Because you know why? It's because you can announce your retirement, but you're never really retired in fighting.
That's what I'm saying. It's
right?
For me, I feel like he's just going to come back and maybe do a U-turn on this after he's had a few months.
Yeah, next week. But another thing I want to get into about this, it just segue into it, is the list that DC had. Because DC had a list of the greatest all time. He had Khabib #1, GSP #2, Demetrius Johnson #3. He had himself on the list, and that's kind of weird. At #4 with Cejudo, and I don't believe Cejudo is not even in the top 5 of all greatest of all time. And Amanda Nunes #5. So he completely misses on Anderson Silva and Jon Jones, right? And then Attic sitting right next to him. I love John Attic, man. He's one of the best people in this sport. He has Jon Jones #1, Khabib #2, GSP #3, Anderson Silva #4, and Amanda Nunes #5. And I'm more to agree with John Attic's list than DC's list. Do you think DC was petty with this list, Mike?
No, because hey, thanks, John. I think again, I think him and Ariel both had like PED lists and non-PED lists. So I think like the list without Jon Jones is the non-PED list. And then he did have a PED list where he did have John and Anderson both on there and him not on it. So I don't think it's petty. But again, these two lists, it's just silly. This whole thing just drives me crazy. Like, I think DC has kind of realized that like him and John are never going to be having Thanksgiving dinner together. Those two hate each other. They always will. But when you share the octagon with somebody, there is a respect there. And Jones beat him twice. Like, one's in the book as a no contest because Jones tested positive and he got cleared of all that, but he still head kicked DC into outer space, and it was nasty. And DC has to live with that moment. And it took him a long time to get over all of that. So I don't think there's pettiness there. I just think, based on Ariel starting off with a PED and a non-PED list, I think DC just kind of followed suit and went from there, honestly.
Yeah, Jon Jones did have his greatest finish during his title run against DC. That is a fact. You know what I mean? Well, a fact in my eyes. But yeah, let's move on. Let's get some questions in here, man. Nick, what is the first one in the comments we got?
Okay, we got some from Tristan. Just first of all, I'm not sure I look like Gunnar Nelson. I got
You
Tom
definitely
Hanks passed away the other day.
Denise Knowles, you are a gem because he definitely does look like Gunnar Nelson. That's his new nickname now.
That's
Gunny.
pretty good.
DJ Gunny. Come on.
Well, the first question we had was from Tristan here. He's asking, what do you guys think has the best main event this week, Bellator 1 or UFC?
Go ahead, Mike. You're the guest.
Damn, that's a good question. I'm going with Bellator, man. Like, I am so in on Mousasi versus Lima tomorrow night. I mean, the UFC, obviously Anderson Silva versus Uriah Hall, like it could be Anderson Silva's final fight. I would say in the last 48 hours, that fight has probably become number 3 on the list because I don't believe for a second this is Anderson Silva's last fight, especially listening to his interviews, his media day today, talking to Ariel, and then he did some media with just the Brazilian outlets today and Brazilian media members. I would say it's like a 1% chance that this is Anderson Silva's final fight. So all the lore that I had heading in is gone. So the UFC one is number 2. Is number 3. 1 is number 2. But man, Mousasi versus Lima, that is high level MMA. I can't wait for it. And I just don't see anything beating that this weekend. I'm fired up for it.
They're all great cards. They're all great main events. That's what I mean. And you got some major names. Of course, he's a major star, but let's be real. He's not known in North America, right? But he is a great fighter. He is a champion. But the matchup is not like as competitive as the other matchups. And plus, that's why I would, when you look at it, I love Anderson Silva, but that fight. I don't really think it's like something that you would put, rank next to the Mousasi versus Lima fight. Just Anderson Silva is great, but man, that matchup is not, what it is. If it was like 5 years ago, yeah, it would be great, but it's not. And so I'll put that number 3. Number 2, of course, Ung versus De Ridder, because Ung is, a major star over here, but the matchup is not that competitive, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's going to play out differently, but no, I'm with Mike. I'm agreeing with Mike all night for some reason. and yeah, this Mousasi Lima fight, just look at on paper and just looking at their past performances and Lima, man. Like I'm a huge Lima guy, man. Like this guy has just under the radar in many ways, just picked up $1 million. Just think about it. Last fight that he won $1 million and a belt and a tournament at the same time, right? And now he's going up a weight class to fight one of the most dangerous guys in that division to get another belt. Come on, how could you not consider this the best fight this week, man? Like that's happening in less than 24 hours, man. I'm hyped for that fight, man. And I know Lima's coach personally, so like it's just something that I look at, and when I talk to him, man, and the way that he talks about Lima and how he built himself throughout his career, it's just amazing. And Mousasi's been fighting since Pride. Like this guy has been through the fire, man. Like if there's gonna be a fight that you need to tune into this week and you don't tune into any other fight, it's this one, Mousasi versus Lima. Yeah, so what do we got next? We got De Ridder's oozing confidence makes this fight seem real competitive.
Yeah, I'm hyped for this fight, man. I saw the hype video on YouTube last night, and I was like, "Oh, this looks good." I know it may not be as prestigious as that Bellator main event, but I'm really excited. I think Ranier's gonna make a good crack of this, and the trash talk's starting to come out. He's saying, "I'm gonna choke you out in 10 seconds." To say that to Onglan Sang, that's pretty brave because that guy knocks a lot of people out.
2020 has become the year of one championship, allowing their fighters to talk a little trash, man. And I like it. Like there's been like, even with like Angela Lee, she's pregnant, but she's talking trash as a pregnant woman. You know what I mean? Like Where do we see that coming in eventually? You know, did you ever see a pregnant fighter coming in and talking trash with one of the title contenders? No, like only in one championship that could happen, and it did. So I love it. I love that they're allowing the fighters to kind of get emotional and you know, go back and forth a little bit, because it does create some interest. And yeah, let's keep it respectful and not attack their family and religions and all of that stuff. And I'm fine with that, you know what I mean? And I'm fine with the other stuff too, you know what I mean? But you know, because it's entertainment at the same time. But yeah, one championship allowing that stuff to happen, I like it, and they're letting their fighters show more of themselves. You know what I mean? Even though it might not be themselves, but it shows more of themselves if they are that way of being more, you know, confident and brash and you know, whatnot. So yeah, let's go to the next question. What we got?
All right, we have another one from Tristan. Anyone else have any questions, please just put them there, and remember, like and subscribe. Tristan is asking you guys for your early thoughts on Leon Edwards against Khamzat Chimaev.
Honestly, I know some people like kind of frowned upon the matchup, and while I disagree with the road that they traveled to get here, I love this fight so much. I am so fired up for it. It's like the perfect chaotic end to a chaotic year to have these two guys fight. It's so wild. And it's great for both guys. Like Leon Edwards has become like an afterthought and it's really it was no fault of his own. And then it became sort of fault of his own, because it's not his fault that he lost the Woodley fight. It is his fault that he hasn't fought since. I mean, I understand why he didn't take the title fight at UFC 251, because, you know, we're in the middle of COVID. You have nowhere to train. You have to get your coaches and other people over to Abu Dhabi, which is like near impossible during the current climate and on that short of notice. So I get it. But being offered some of these other matchups and turning them down, I mean, it's just not good. It's just not good. You can bark on Twitter all you want that you want to fight Jorge Masvidal and all these other guys, but they're not fighting you right now. There's no need. If Jorge Masvidal walked up to you in the back room during a live interview at the ESPN and he punched you in the face, and the UFC still didn't want to book that fight, like, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Move on. Find other fish to fry. Unfortunately, he's going to take on like the most surging fish in the ocean right now in Khamzat Chimaev. So, but this is good for Leon Edwards. If he beats Khamzat Chimaev, he gets all that luster back. He becomes, I mean, I truly believe that Gilbert Burns better be watching this fight very closely. Like, I think Gilbert Burns is the guy, and he should get the next title shot. If Khamzat Chimaev wins, Burns is going to get the old bumperoo, and Chimaev's going to fight for the title. That's just the way that it is. Leon Edwards wins. I still think Burns will probably get the shot, but he's probably next in line at this point. So there is a lot on the line for this fight. I think Edwards wins. I think he picks up a decision, but I mean, I can't wait to see how this thing plays out.
Chimaev, man, he's in the good graces of Dana White. And whenever you're in the good graces of Dana White, he gives you what you want, right? And he's going to pick the guy that he doesn't like, and he's going to put you against him. And this is the situation right here, right? They took him out. This is a prime example of why the rankings do not mean anything, right? When Edwards, they took Edwards out the rankings, and then all of a sudden this fight is booked, and then he's back in the rankings at number 3. And you know why? Because he took the fight, and also if Khamzat comes in and beats Edwards, it lines him up perfectly for a title shot, and they're gonna bump Gilbert Burns, man. It doesn't matter what Dana White is saying right now about Gilbert Burns as the number 1 contender. If who's the champ? What's his name? Usman. It's exactly like Usman is the champ. He's very dominant, but a lot of people are not really paying attention to him as much. You know what I mean? Like you know, like the whole MMA world, you know, in general, and they want a champion that people are paying attention to, and this is just lining up Khamzat perfectly, his trail, his story. But you know what? I agree with you, Mike. I think his hype train is going to be derailed by Edwards, because Edwards is a monster in that division, and you know why he's a monster? Is because he's had how many fights against the top guys and beat them all, right? And think about it. Only guy I think beat him was who? Usman, right? And he's the champ. I don't see, if Hamza beat, me, Nick knows me. Like, I'm not a hype train guy. Never. Kobe Bryant, I wasn't on the hype train for him until he did something. LeBron James, I wasn't on the hype train until he did something, right? And I'm not changing for anybody. I'm not on the hype train for, like Sean O'Malley had the hype train. Wasn't on the hype train for him either. And Hamzat, not on it until he goes in there and he smashes Leon Edwards. Then I'll bow down and say, Hamzat, you are the next big thing. But man, this story, man, if he does, man, go in there and destroys Edwards, man, it's like everybody that was on Twitter or everybody was just chatting, just chatting shit about Hamzat, you have to bow down, man, to him, because he's gonna go in there and face Usman. He's gonna fight for the title next year if he does it, if he does the damn thing against Edwards, man, and that's what makes this fight so exciting. It's not Edwards. That's bad to say. It's not Edwards. It's Hamzat. Hamzat is making this fight so exciting. And wait until they get, do some kind of media. Imagine what Hamzat's going to come out and he's like, I smash you, like, because Leon Edwards is not really a big trash talker, right? Mike, you've probably spoken to him, right? It's just, he's not that type of guy.
Not really. I mean, like he'll talk some noise about Masvidal, but that it's like in between. He's like the perfect balance between like Colby and Wonder Boy. He's like right smack in the middle,
That's the worst position to be in as a trash talker.
He's like the medium MFer champion. He's just like right down the middle, the balance of the 170 pounders.
Do you think the accent, like, the British accent, and Nick, he could chime in on this, the British accent, if you don't have like that Liverpool style of accent from the UK, everybody sounds so nice. You know what I mean? Like, it's so polite, right?
I don't know. What Leon Edwards? Don't talk about Scouse accents because Chris will start commenting. If you call Scouse accents threatening, he won't be happy with that. No, I think Leon Edwards sounds menacing when he wants. He's not. Yeah, I would have taken that Wonderboy fight if I'm him. Really, you can't sit out that long, like Mike was saying. Just do something. Yeah, now he's gonna get smashed by Hamzat, I think, and then that's it for him, right? He'll never get,
because Nick's a big Hamzat guy. Nick's he's on the hype train.
I'm not like a fan of him. He's fun. I just think he's clearly special, if that makes sense.
He's the A side by far.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's going to be making a lot more money than Leon in that fight, isn't he? Just
probably.
Mike, I was thinking of a conspiracy on Hamzat. The reason why Dana White is pushing him so hard since he has debuted is because he knew that Khabib was going to retire and he needed another star, and what better division to have a star like a similar character as Khabib in welterweight, you know what I mean? Because, like Usman, he's not the biggest star. He hasn't, he has his chances to become huge, but it's not happening for him, you know what I mean? So why not have a guy like Hamzat come in and take over that division?
See, one of the weird questions that I've had, like I did the complete opposite of what you did. I didn't look for a conspiracy. I put myself in these like rabbit holes of like, what if this thing happened differently? Like how, like what would it look like right now? Like, let's just say Hamzat, let's just say that like the John Phillips fight actually went through and he fought who he was supposed to fight, which I'm trying to remember who it was. I know he just recently fought. Was it Tom? I don't remember. Hamzat got in there and fought and did the damn thing and then said, I want to fight next week. What if Hamzat like didn't get that shot and Casey Kenny, like on this last trip, like after he beat Alatang Haley and he jumped out of the cage and he started yelling, I want to fight next week. Like, would Casey Kenny be getting this push right now because he was the first one to do it? Like, that's what I'm wondering. Like, would he have gotten the same pull and the same push as Chimaev? I don't know. It's all about how the promotion views you. And Dana White fell in love with this guy right away. Whether it's because he knew Khabib was going to retire or not, I don't know. I think he knew that the door was closing on Khabib. I thought maybe we had Khabib for another 6 or 7 months, but that was it. I thought maybe one more fight in April and then he was out the door anyway. So maybe Dana was kind of planting those seeds, but I don't know, man. I mean, Chimaev is just one of those things where the universe just comes together and everything just comes up a certain individual. And right now in 2020, everything's come up Khamzat. I mean, when he knocked out Gerald Meerschaert, that was so wild. I was just like, you got to be shitting me right now. Like, I cannot believe this just happened. Like, it's just so good, especially with Meerschaert doing such a great job, like selling the fight and selling the dream. Like, I'm going to go in there and shut this dude up. And then, like, man, he just looked like immediate. And I love Gerald Meerschaert. He just looked like terrified. He looked like finished immediately when he got in the cage, and then he was finished immediately. He was finished immediately. He was mentally finished, and then he was physically finished. Yeah. Like, just so crazy just to see it go down like that. Like, that was like A++++. Like, it could not have gone any better. There's nothing, unless he did like a flying drop kick and lit himself on fire. There's nothing better he could have done on that night. It's just so crazy.
Yeah, he is the David Copperfield of MMA now. You know, like he's just pulling rabbits out his ass and all kinds of stuff in the cage right now. But yeah, Khamzat, man, like there's a lot of people on the hype train, like I said earlier, and I think because of the Jared Meerschaert performance, I think it's justified that people are there, you know, riding that train in the back. And it's great, man. It's great narrative going into many of the fights now with Khamzat and who he calls out. But you know, I also wanted to see Khamzat fight a couple more guys instead of just hopping straight in against the number 3 guy too at the same time. So, you know, Nick, what do we got next? We got something other than Khamzat?
Yeah, I've got a couple more questions we can do if you're up for it.
Yeah,
I think this one's a pretty obvious one coming out of the weekend as well. What's the lightweight title situation? Should there be a tournament asked Lepido like 2009? I hope I pronounced that right. Lepido. Like.
Of course there should be a tournament. Of course. There's no other way to do this. But it's not going to happen. It is not going to happen because the UFC doesn't like to have fun with anything. Like, they don't like to. Yeah, they'll put a cage in the center of the beach on Fight Island and do like press conferences and face-offs there, and that's like kind of fun. It's just fun because of where you're at geographically and aesthetic-wise. But when you like a tournament, why would we do a tournament? Because tournaments are awesome, dude. Especially in this situation. Like, why would you not do a tournament right now? Like, 55 has always been like a very top-heavy division with some of the biggest names. But over like the last couple of years, we've seen some of these sneaky divisions come up, like bantamweight, like even featherweight's looking really good, like some of the guys that are coming up in that division. So right now, 55 is so interesting. This is the most interesting 55 has been in a long time, despite the names that they have there. And they're just going to piss this all away. Like, they're just going to piss it all away. They're going to do Conor versus Poirier for the stupid belt. And then guys like Ferguson and Gaethje, who probably deserve these title shots. Like, poor Charles Oliveira is not going to get a title shot to like 2027. Like, what the hell, man? What the hell? Do a damn tournament. Come on.
Damn. I love it. I love the
riled up
anger. Come on.
It's so stupid to not do a tournament. Like, at least, like, you don't even have to say it's a tournament. Just put all of these fighters on the same card, and then we can like imagine it's a tournament for ourselves. We can pretend it's a tournament. Like, do something interesting. They're not going to. They're not going to do it. It's going to be Conor versus Poirier, and then they're just going to load up, and we'll see Calder with an eye on the main card. And I mean, that's a nice fight, but we want to see like this whole event just be lightweight bouts. Like, I want to see like all of them: Hooker, Felder, all of them, Oliveira, Ferguson, Chandler, Gaethje, every single one of them on that main card. We're not going to get it, but that's what we should see.
4 fights on the main card, pay-per-view, Conor at the top, you know what I mean? And in the prelims, you have a couple interesting lightweight fights that could replace some of the guys if they fall out in the main card. That would be perfect, you know what I mean? But like you said, the UFC is not about having fun. They're about the Conor business. That's what it is. It's the Conor show. And, you know, everybody realizes that, you know what I mean? And we're not stupid. We know what's going to happen. Conor's going to fight for the title. It could be Poirier. It could be Ferguson. It could be anybody. But Conor's going to be there. He's going to be the one fighting for the title. And Conor knows that. Conor's sitting at home right now with his with his shiny bald head. I think he copied you, Mike. I think he copied you, man. You better take credit for that. I think he stole your look. But
Bald is beautiful, man.
exactly, man, and it's clean too. And oh man, it's I don't even want to talk about tournaments because why? It's not going to happen. But I would love that idea, like you said. Don't even call it a tournament. Just have all the best lightweights fight on one card, and he'll figure it out on his own. And of course, if you want to give Conor the title shot, just do it, and we'll watch it. And if he wins, and then it's just going to be better for the UFC because the UFC doesn't really care about the fans. Even Dana White told you, if you don't like it, don't watch, right? So he told you, like, he doesn't care about what you're doing because he knows everybody's going to watch.
It's smart though. Like, I think what people are overlooking here amidst everyone's respective eye rolls is that Conor set this all up himself. Like, he knew Khabib was going to retire. He knew it. And that's why he called out Poirier for a charity match. And he knew the UFC would not bite on that whatsoever. So what are they going to do? They're going to make the fight themselves and put it at a certain time where we know that Khabib may or may not be done. Worst case scenario, it's a number one contender fight. But I think a lot of people knew that this could be it for Khabib. Like, just getting him in the cage one more time against a guy like Justin Gaethje was pretty cool. But bravo to McGregor, man. Like, bravo to him. Like, we may not like it, but he's smart. He knows he knew that if Khabib had walked away after beating Justin Gaethje, he's already there. They're definitely giving him the title shot. Doesn't matter what other fights you have on there. Conor's getting a title shot no matter what. He knew it. The world knew it. And here we are, January 23rd. Now just put pen to paper. At this point, like, just make it happen. Like, I don't want to wait another month and just see a bunch of BS on Twitter back and forth. Well, the money's not right. I want to fight at 8:30 p.m. I want to fight at Cowboy Stadium. I want 87,000 people there. Like, just sign the contract and let's go, man.
Exactly. Yeah, these guys coming out with all these stipulations. It's just like, and it's just another reason for Dana White to say he doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to fight. That's just what they're doing, right? They're just fighting. Dana just could find a way for you to push you to the side and say, okay, you don't want to fight. All right, we're gonna put the next guy against Conor, right? It's just, and even Ferguson said in a recent interview that if he doesn't get paid more than everybody else, besides Conor, he's not gonna fight again. And I like that stance. You know what I mean? Like, of course, you know, we want the fighters to get paid as much as possible, and if he's gonna take that stance, good for him. But man, it's just another reason for Dana White to say Tony Ferguson doesn't want to fight. You know what I mean? That's all it is. Because he said it about Poirier. Poirier, like, the dude has had fight of the night like 18 times. Like, how are you gonna say that he doesn't want to fight?
That's nuts.
It is. It's insane, man. Now, I got a couple questions from Twitter. Let's get into these questions. From Fraser Robinson. Thank you, Fraser, for sending these questions in. And the first question is, why do you think one championship is a better fit for Demetrius Johnson than the UFC was for him? You know, Mike, what do you think about Demetrius Johnson going to one championship? Do you think the UFC really did make a mistake, or is one championship just a better fit for him?
It's a way better fit for him. One, because he's making a crap ton more money, and that's always good. And then second, he's got to be treated like a professional athlete. Like, he's not just like the flyweight who beats the other flyweights that we don't care about. Like, over there, he's celebrated. He's very happy with where he's at, and one's happy with him. Like, this is the best case scenario. Like, what else was there for him to do in the UFC? The only other thing he could do is go up to 35 and and fight one of those guys. Like, he could have gone back up and fought Cejudo for the bantam. I mean, what else is there to do? The dude ran through the entire division. He did enough. And, you know, as much as he tried, I feel like the UFC didn't really push him. Like, he's a big video game guy, and the UFC didn't market that enough and appeal to that audience. So they kind of screwed the pooch on that. And so good for DJ. It worked out great for him. He's making good money. He's taking care of his family even better than he ever thought he could. He's getting competitive matchups. And he likes where he's at. He's like legitimately a happy guy. Like, he doesn't have to answer dumb questions about 35 and 25 and super fights. He just needs to go in there and just be a representative for one, be a champion, and, you know, just be the guy. Like, it doesn't even have to be the guy. He's just a guy, like a very special guy on that roster. And one's treating him well. He's treating one well. It's a great relationship. This is the best move overall.
Yeah, I spoke with him during the the height of the pandemic, and he, you know, he's happy, man. And if the fighter is happy where he's at, you should be happy for him, and don't try to interject on like, oh, you should be over here, you should be over there, you know, like dude is getting paid a lot of money, and he's building his brand. Like he told me, like all the fighters in the UFC still calling him out, like in the flyweight division or even in the bantamweight division. You're building my brand. I don't even have to do anything. I'm not even competing over there in the UFC, and you're still talking about me. Like you're helping me out. You know what I mean? Like, and he's happy. He's like, I don't care. And I think DJ's always been like that. DJ's always been that kind of like, he doesn't really worry about what everybody else is doing. He's just doing his own thing. And that's what One Championship is pushing for him, is kind of, you know, I think growing his brand on top of that. And I think that's what was missing in the UFC for him. He's done everything that you need to do. And even when he lost the title, he didn't even really care. It seemed like, you know, he probably cared, but it's not like he was in the cage, like running up and down the, you know, like running around the octagon, like, no, like he's not doing that. He's just like, okay, what, you know, whatever. It almost like the writing was on the wall for him, you know, like he knew that he wasn't going to come back if that title was probably going to slip through his fingers. And that's what happened. And he went to One Championship, and he's great right now, man. He's like, he won a tournament already, the flyweight tournament, and he's about to fight for the title. You know, and it doesn't seem like he's in a hurry to fight for the title, and you don't see like the promotion, you know, like pushing him into like, you know, a certain date or anything like that. It's just they're letting him be him, and it's great to see. And what do you think, Nick? You know, you cover One Championship a lot, man, and DJ, you know, you've seen him. He's carefree, man.
You covered it really. Not much I can add in that regard. I just think he checked out. There's a lot less pressure on him there. He's not getting all the stupid questions like Mike was saying, although he still gets asked pretty much every time about Cejudo. But I think he's having more fun, and he gets to see more of his family, I think, and he gets to, like, the dude's just had a year off at least, and I think he's really enjoying being with his children more than fighting. And if he was still in the UFC, he would have been forced to fight already. But One doesn't do that. If the DJ doesn't want to fight, DJ doesn't fight, because Matt Hume is, you know, his guy is the vice president, or, you know, he's a matchmaker there. He's not going to force DJ to fly to Asia if he doesn't want and fight in the middle of a pandemic. And I like that. DJ can call the shots in One. He can't call the shots in UFC, not by any stretch. He was just another guy there in the end, and someone who is as good as him should have some power, shall we say.
And he's getting competitive matchups, like Mike said. Like if you watched his fights in One, he didn't steamroll these guys, man. These guys are coming in there trying to take his head off. And in a couple of the fights, he got. I never
they're all
seen
a lot bigger than him, because it's not really
that's another
his
challenge
weight
that,
class there.
you know, it's not easy. You know what I mean? A lot of people think like, oh, DJ's gonna go over there, it's gonna be easy for him. It hasn't been easy for him. That tournament,
he could have gone to strawweight.
Exactly, he could have went to strawweight and just dominated. And
I think
if you and in the fight against in one of the fights, I feel like it was against Yuya. He damaged DJ. His face was all messed up, man, in that fight. And you never seen that in the UFC. Even against Cejudo, his face was clean. He didn't even take any damage. He just lost the fight. So like, I'm very interested to see him versus Adriano Moraes, because I think like DJ's DJ. Like he's a legend. You can't take that away from him. But it allows these other guys on the other side of the world to create their name and their legacy off DJ. And I love that, you know, narrative, you know, going into these fights in One Championship. And I'm glad that DJ's over there, man. It spreads out everything, you know, like we know that the UFC has the most talent in one location, but there's top guys all around the world. Bellator, KSW has top guys, you know, what is it? PFL has good guys. You know what I mean? One Championship has good guys. It's everywhere. So that's what it is. Now, the next thing this guy was asking was about the Korean Zombie. He's saying, should the Korean Zombie be training at Sanford MMA? I don't know, like where this because he represents Fight Ready, right? That's like a very good camp. You know, you got Henry Cejudo, and I believe Paulo Costa is out of there, and a bunch of guys from the UFC. Henry Corrales, who's fighting, I think tomorrow, he's out of Fight Ready. But do you think he would benefit going to Sanford MMA, Mike?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's things that they do that, maybe Fight Ready doesn't that could benefit him. And I'm sure that Fight Ready does things that Sanford MMA doesn't do. Like, it's all about comfort and all that stuff. I mean, if he wants to go there and get some different work and get some different looks, sure. It's not the worst place to be. That's for damn sure. But I mean, coming out of that fight with Brian Ortega, my first thought was, man, he needs to change his camp. I mean, I just didn't think about that at all. He just had an off night. And not even that, Brian Ortega had such a great night. I mean, we can't discredit what he did. He surprised everybody. No one expected him to stand there and outstrike the Korean Zombie for 25 minutes. He goes out there looking bald as ever, doing the damn thing on the feet. Like, nobody saw that coming. So kudos to Brian Ortega. I don't think a change of camp is what's needed here, but I think one thing that might be needed is just a little more activity for Korean Zombie. Like, I know it's tough. It's been a crazy year. It's not as easy for him to get from one place to the other during a freaking pandemic. I get all that. But if he can get active and get back on the horse pretty quickly, I think that's probably the best medicine for him at this point. I don't think a new training camp is that.
Yeah, I agree. He should probably focus on working with the coaches that he has instead of going to a whole new environment and trying to adjust to different coaches. I don't think that's the solution to if he does have a problem. Because if you read his post after the fight, he said that after that spinning elbow, when that landed, he doesn't remember anything after that. Like, I think he said that he started to get his wits back in the 5th round. So basically he was on what is it, pilot mode or autopilot for the 3rd, 4th, and most of the 5th round. And that's insane, right? Like, you're on autopilot against one of the best guys in the world, and you're surviving and you're competing. It's crazy, man, to think how tough the Korean Zombie is, and everybody says, oh, Koreans are tough. And I tell you, Koreans have hard heads. Yes, it's true. But man, the Korean Zombie, whenever someone loses, everybody wants to like change everything. Like, everybody wants to be coached now. Like, they're like, you need to go to this guy because this guy's going to help you. And it's like, come on, let him work with Eddie Cha, man. Eddie Cha is legit, man. He's coached some of the best guys in the world. He's coached Cejudo, man. Like, he's coached Cannonier, all these guys, great guys out of MMA Lab too. So it's like, let him try to work with him and see what he can do. Because we don't, like I've always said, I don't see there's many fights left for the Korean Zombie. I don't see him fighting for much longer. Because I think like this fight was like make or break for him, and I feel like he's just gonna fight out his contract, and we might not see him again. He's been through so much, man. His body's a wreck, man, and like. And those fights where he went balls to the wall, think about all the I think, cerebral damage that he's taken. You don't know what toll that, that has taken on him. Camp is the answer for the Korean Zombie. But what do you think? You think Cater should be next? I know you're a Boston guy. Cater is awesome. What do you think about? You think Cater should be fighting Max Holloway? I think that should happen. What do you think about the Korean Zombie? Who's the best matchup when he comes back? Not Josh Emmett, because Josh Emmett's going to be out for another year.
I mean, my initial thought was Josh Emmett just because of how inactive Korean Zombie is. Like, my first thought, like, after being in there and kind of taking the beating he took, was like, man, this guy's going to need like a bunch of time off. Like, he may not come back to like, end of spring, early summer, and probably just in time for Emmett to come back. So I was thinking about it in that sense, but I think Edson Barboza is the fight to make. Like, Barboza wants a name. He's like, I want I want a top 5 fight. You're not getting a top 5 fight. You're just not. Makwan Amirkhani is a good win for you, but you're not getting a top 5 fight. Korean Zombie, you go out there and you beat Korean Zombie, yeah, you can get a top 5 fight after that. But I think that's the fight to make. Love to see it happen. Don't know if it will happen. Barboza wants to get back in there right away. I don't know. I think that's the fight to make. It just depends on when Korean Zombie's ready to come back. If he's not going to fight till the summer, give him Josh Emmett, because Josh Emmett deserves that opportunity. But if he's ready to come back relatively quick, maybe like the first quarter of 2021, give him Barboza. Let's have some fun.
I just don't like, Josh Emmett to me is probably the most powerful puncher in that featherweight division. There's not many guys that has the power that he packs. And man, that's a crazy matchup, and I love it. But it's like, I don't know if that's the right one for the Korean Zombie to come back to. If he waits that long, I guess that's what's good. They're gonna push that, and I believe that they trained together in the past before, so that's an interesting factor there too. But yeah, Edson Barboza, that one sounds great, man. I like that matchup, man. That's they, because they're not gonna wrestle. You know what I mean? That's not gonna happen. Maybe the Korean Zombie might wrestle, but I doubt it. So they're gonna stand in front of each other and throw hands. So it's interesting. What we got next, Nick? We got any more questions?
Got a bunch more questions. Our guy Chris, he's just thrown it to the Anderson Silva fight. Just asking who you guys think the best Brazilian goats are, or G boats, as he's put it. He's given his own top 5. Chris is suggesting Anderson Silva, Shogun, Big Dog, Nunes, and Aldo. No Vitor, Cyborg, or even Royce Gracie. Such a great country, and that's without mentioning JDS and Makita et al. Take it away.
You guys want a little breaking news before we get into this?
Oh yeah. What's going on?
I mean, you're gonna see it on MMA Fighting, and if you happen to be watching right now, great. If not, you'll find out in a matter of moments. But Kevin Holland has a new opponent for Saturday.
What?
He's gonna fight Charlie Ontiveros, who, if you remember, Ontiveros was supposed to. I have to look this up, and I apologize for doing this in the middle of the show. As you can see, at different points, you probably saw me like looking at one side. That was my phone confirming one piece of information, and then I'm looking at the other side, and that's the laptop letting everybody know that these things are happening. So Ontiveros got an opportunity with the UFC and was going to take a fight on like a day's notice. He was going to remember the whole Eric Spicely, Marcus Perez situation.
Okay.
So Charlie Ontiveros was going to come in like on a day's notice and fight Marcus Perez, but then he didn't get cleared at the last second. So he was kind of out and with nowhere to go. But now that Holland's opponent is out, Holland's not going to fight Charlie Ontiveros. So there you go. So Kevin Holland still continues his monthly run of fighting, and now he wants to fight Mike Perry in November. So let's see if he can make this happen. So there you go. A little bit of breaking news. I can't get over the G-boat thing. That is so awesome. I can't get that out of my head. Can you put that list back up real quick? Now that I'm like,
before we get into that, just another reason to follow Mike on Twitter, man. He's breaking news all the time. So you guys want to break news or breaking news, go to his Twitter, give him a follow, man, and you'll get all the breaking news, all day, every day. Yeah. So back to this question about the G boats. The G boats. That's a thing now. Hashtag G boats, right? Like,
never gonna say it any other way.
Yeah, it's like hashtag G boats. Like, so he makes a good list, right? Chris makes a great list. Anderson Silva, Shogun, Big Nog, Nunez, Aldo, Vitor, Cyborg, Gracie, Machida, JDS. Who would you rank? I guess I'll start. I say the greatest Brazilian of all time has to be, G-boat, the greatest G-boat all time. Why do I keep thinking it's G-spot now? Like G-boat, G-spot, like what? I don't know. My mind is just out of
in the gutter.
But it's in the gutter for sure. It's between me. It's so hard because when you factor like pride, it's like, damn, could you go with Big Nog? Like Big Nog, man, he's had a crazy career, you know what I mean? And it also bled into the UFC. But then when you look at Anderson Silva and what he's done, and Shogun too, his resume and pride also, man, G boats, man, it's hard to say, but I'll say the top 3 are Anderson Silva, Big Nog, and Shogun, and then Amanda Nunez is there too. You can't discount her. What do you think, Mike?
Man. All right, Silva's 1 for sure. I think Jose Aldo's number 2. Like I feel like he gets undervalued in all of these lists, in all of them. So number 2 G-boat is Jose Aldo, no doubt. And then I think the rest of the list, I agree with you. Just then you can kind of interchange where they are, between 3, 4, and 5. But I think those are the guys. You're right. It was a top 5. Why did I think it was a top 3? But yeah, you're right. Jose Aldo is definitely in there. So I guess you do have Silva, Shogun, Big Nog, Aldo, and Nunez, right? I guess that would be the top 5. But man, yeah, there's so many great G boats. Like there's so many great G boats, right? Like it's one of those countries where
they've just produced so many great boats, like there's just these boats are great, you know what I mean? Like, what can you do? We're not even talking about like the Pitbull, like Patricio Pitbull, you know what I mean? He's in the middle of his career and he hasn't even finished. I could see him going to the UFC eventually. Do you think that that's a possibility? Even though he's talked so much trash about like Dana White, but you know what? Ben Askren went to the UFC and he talked mad trash about Dana White too. So I don't think talking trash about Dana White is a factor.
Maybe. I mean, listen, anything can happen. If you told me, I mean, I've always wanted to see Michael Chandler in the UFC. And if you asked me 5 years ago if he was going to ever get there, I probably wouldn't have believed you. But here he is. So, I mean, stranger things have happened. I'd love to see it. Absolutely love to see it. I doubt it happens, though. I think Bellator will I mean, those guys are like staples. Like, and they always will be. Like, and they just continue to get better. Chandler, like, they just were like, I think we got the best of Chandler. I think we got the best of him. They could be wrong, and Coker was willing to take that risk. But I don't think he's letting either of those guys go.
He took the risk with Eddie Alvarez, and what did Eddie Alvarez do? He went over there and won the UFC title, right?
I know, right?
But you know what though? I think this is calculated in many ways with Coker, because Coker let Chandler go over there. He didn't. I don't know if he's let him go over there, but he allowed it to happen. And even if he wins that UFC title, let's say he goes in there and beats Conor and wins that title, and that would probably be the biggest win of his career, probably the biggest accomplishment. They'll always be able to say Pitbull knocked out Chandler with one punch. You know what I mean? Like, they could always use that. They could just put in like highlight packages when, like, right after that show happens, after he wins the title. So I love how like Coker, he's real calm and cool, but man, he's strategic in many ways. That he's a little sneaky guy. He's half Korean, right? So he's a little sneaky guy. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens.
This fight tomorrow came at like the perfect time for Bellator too. They needed this fight right now. Like, this could not be a January fight. This needs to happen now, because they have made so many great decisions behind the scenes. The signings that they've made, like, they're doing everything right, but nobody cares. Like, it's just amazing. They came back and nobody cares. I don't get it. People can't figure out where to friggin' watch these shows outside of the United States. They have no idea, but they're signing great guys. They're bringing in Brett Johns and Corey Anderson and guys like Jared Scoggins and some of the CFFC champions. Like, they're making great strategic moves, but nobody cares. But tomorrow, if they don't get some buzz coming off of this fight, like, I don't know what the hell he's going to do. Because Scott Coker, in my opinion, as an executive with his decision-making, is getting an A+, but for some reason, I don't know if it's just like the cards are just lacking in people's opinions. There's just not enough of a draw there. Like, nobody, like, it was so funny. Chris Cyborg, one of their biggest stars, headlined a card a couple of weeks ago. That show didn't even make the top 150 on the ratings for Thursday night in the United States. It lost to reruns of the Cleveland show. The Cleveland show. Reruns of the Cleveland show. Bellator with Chris Cyborg in the main event could not beat a rerun of the Cleveland show. That's bad. I don't know. I don't know.
And you really look at that as an example of like trying to dig yourself out the ditch, because they created a huge ditch with that gap of no shows and just nothing, right?
Yeah.
Imagine like what kind of ditch the PFL has dug for themselves, with just not having anything, you know what I mean? Like, just nothing for the whole year and then coming back in April. I don't know what's going to happen with that, man. It's going to be a rough road for them in North America. But yeah, like I feel like, what do you think is best for Bellator? Do you think Lima winning would be best for Bellator or Mousasi?
Probably Mousasi.
Oh, you think so?
Probably Mousasi. Listen, it's always cool when you see a guy with 2 belts, right? Like, you're just like, wow, like, this is just awesome. But then you have a guy with 2 belts, and then you have 2 divisions that have to be kind of put on hold. And I know Lima is a gangster, and if anybody can defend 2 titles, it's him. But even Ryan Bader, like, just a super freak athlete who's on such a run even it got a little bit too much for him. And I don't want to see two divisions held up. Like, it would be great for Lima, be a great moment. Like, I think the best case scenario is that these two guys just beat the brakes off of each other and they have 5 amazing rounds and Mousasi wins like a split decision, because it's great for everybody. It shows that Mousasi is the champion. He can represent the 185-pound division, but Lima gets such a rub from it. It just makes his stock rises so much, going toe-to-toe and having a brawl and an all-out war with a guy like Gegard Mousasi. Both of their stocks rise. You get a great main event. Bellator gets some buzz back. I think that's the best case scenario for everybody.
It is. I think for Mousasi, he needs to win this fight, man. If he loses against Lima, where does he go from here? You know, does he go to 205, where I believe he's already lost in that division? You know, it's hard for you to kind of campaign for a title shot when you're coming off a loss in a title fight at the lower weight class, right? So I think it's best for everybody that like you said, they go to war and he wins the fight. It doesn't matter how he wins the fight. He has the belt. And Lima, his stock raises and he's still the welterweight champion. He could go back down there and defend his title. Yeah, Mousasi has to win this fight, man. It's like he has his back against the wall for real. Like, I don't see a good scenario for him if he loses this fight, especially if he gets like knocked out in the first round by Lima. And that's a high likability that could happen, man. Lima is just, his striking is crazy, man. Like when Lima was in Thailand, I don't know if it was last year, but he was training down there, and I was but I was down there at the same time, and I went to go meet his coach in Lima too, man. I was just watching him train, dude. Like, dude is just so powerful, man. Like, his kicks are just like, we're in this like road, like there's this like country road by the beach. There's nothing around us, and there's just like this like Muay Thai gym, and he's there with him, his coach, and a couple training partners, and his Muay Thai coach, and dude, like in the middle of nowhere, his kicks are thundering through the field, like whack, like you could hear it like way over there, like by the mountains. Like, Jesus Christ, like I'm excited for this fight. I think a lot of people, if you want a good fight, a great matchup, this is a great matchup, man. Like, I don't understand why people are overlooking this fight, and it could be because they don't know where the hell to watch the fight. They have no idea. But yeah, Bellator needs to do a better job. And I think that's a complaint that people have had for like years now. Like, where do you watch Bellator? They keep changing every 3 months. Like, they're on CBS, they're on Paramount, they're on YouTube, they're on, Twitch. I don't know where they're at, right? But
at least they're live now. At least they're live coast to coast. Like, there's no tape delays on the West Coast. There are no tape delays on European cards. Thank Christ that's happening now. Like, it just drove me crazy. Like, it's a Friday card and we have to watch like Mousasi fight Rory McDonald. Like, we just have to find out the results on Twitter and then watch the fight 4 hours later. Like, you have to actually put in promos that Conor McGregor jumped over the cage 4 hours ago. Make sure you watch the replay of this card that nobody got to see live in the United States, and watch a UFC fighter jump over the cage and try to attack our referee. Like, it's just so stupid. At least they figured that out, which is good. Yeah. But this, like, the card, like the whole card tomorrow is really good. Like, I like how there's only 3 main card fights. I mean, that's just glorious. I'd love to see more of that. But Corrales versus Gertz is a great fight. Veda Arteaga versus Desiree Yanez is a great fight. And then, of course, Mr. Jake Hager's on this card. We got Nick Newell and Zach Zane. Like, this is a really good card. Like, it's a really good card. And it starts like 5:15 on the East Coast, the prelims. This is just right up my alley, JHK. Right up my alley.
I was wondering, the Mohegan Sun is not too far from where you're at. Why do you decide not to attend the Bellator cards?
It's like I would go for MMA fighting and like they would like cover certain things. It's just tough because like if I could just go tomorrow and cover it, I probably would. But you have to go and you have to quarantine for like 24 hours and all that stuff. And like, I just don't have the time to do that because I have my wife and I got my son and he's in school and it's just like all sorts of chaos. So if I were to go, I'd have to go for like 3 or 4 days. And it's just like between them and between what I need to do, it's just like not possible right now. And luckily, like I still get to do like and talk to these fighters like right in this chair, like right in this room. Like talk to Mousasi, talk to Hager right after he weighed in today, which is pretty cool. Like I would love to be there and be sitting cage side and watching the action, but cool being here with the fam too.
Yeah, man. I think a lot of people probably wonder that too. They're like, why is Mike not there? But understandable, man. The situation right now, it's not easy, man. Like you said, they need to open it up. They need to open this shit up. That's what they need to do. Like, come on, man. Like, what is these? I understand the quarantines though, you know what I mean? Like you got to do it, but man, they need to open this stuff up and people need to wear masks and that's a whole nother podcast that we don't want to get into. What we got next?
We just had a bit of conversation off the back of that question. Maybe you can fold a couple in. John just asking, any other promotions doing well stateside? And one of our favorites, Sepulot, was also asking, do you think casual North American fans can deal with two big promotions? Is it too much having one already?
I mean, that's always an interesting conundrum, right? But I think I actually like that Bellator's on Thursdays now. I think that's good for us. Like we get a little bit of a reprieve. Like at least like back in the old days where they would go back to back or compete against each other. Like you lose a Friday night and a Saturday night. Like especially when the world was open and people would go to bars and potentially meet the love of their lives and have a couple of cocktails. Like to miss out on a Friday and a Saturday night of that action. I mean, the law of averages just dropped considerably. Like what are you going to find on a Sunday after a Friday and Saturday, people going out there and just getting rocked out there? Like it's just kind of slim pickings. So at least with a Thursday, like if you still want to go out on Friday, you can, and then you can watch the UFC on Saturday. This is nice. It's a nice little space. So the problem is like, it just takes a while. Like I remember being like a huge pro wrestling fan and I'd be like, all right, Raw's on the USA Network and Nitro's on TNT. And then all of a sudden like Raw goes on TNN, which is now Paramount, and like, what the hell? Like, this is the dog show. Why am I watching Silk Stockings right now? I want to watch the WWF. And then you find out it's on TNN, and it takes a couple of weeks, couple of shows to get used to all that. But the problem is everybody who has a cable set up has the Paramount Network. If you want CBS Sports, you got to spend a little bit more cash to make that happen. You got to buy like the next tier cable package. And I'm not the kind of guy that's going to say, you know what, go out there and find a little stream action. But if you're a fan, get out there and find the damn stream action and watch this card. Make it happen. This is just too good. And you get to watch the prelims on YouTube. You only have to watch 3 fights. Like, it's not like you're sitting on a illegal stream for 3 days. You're sitting there for 3 fights. Could be like an hour and a half. Another problem with Bellator, sucks bad.
Breaking up a bit. I think, Mike. We lost Mike, have we?
Did we lose him?
He's frozen.
Yeah.
Shall I add him in again? Maybe that'll help. Just if you got him on text, just tell him to leave the studio and then come back in.
All right.
I guess I will get another comment up here.
Yeah.
They were talking. I know you were talking about this on Twitter, John. Real Snitch Mob Hitter asks, "Did you see the Bellator weigh-ins? They're sort of going viral due to the Brandon Gertz incident."
There he is. Back.
Yeah, back just in time for our next question, Mike. The Bellator weigh-ins, Brandon Gertz incident.
Oh, we already talked about that.
Did we? All right.
Rewind to the beginning. And
I think there was an apology.
Yeah,
okay,
there was.
okay,
Mike
mentioned
it earlier. Mike explained it really well. Just rewind to the beginning, and you could get into all of that.
And
but
we had another question asking about Fighter of the Year. I think you guys also covered that. Right?
We're gonna get into something later on. I got a couple questions. Always
Okay.
at the end we got two questions for the guests. So we'll get into that. We'll take maybe 1 or 2 more questions, and then we'll get into those questions. But before, I just wanted to elaborate off what Mike was saying earlier. He mentioned that going to the bar and meeting the love of your life. It just reminded me of Robin Williams and Good Will Hunting, especially with the Boston hat on. Like that story. I'd never forget that story, right? It's just something that's ingrained in my mind. But get out there, you lonely men on Twitter. Get out there to the bars on Thursday night at your Buffalo Wild Wings or Ruby Tuesdays or TGI Fridays or whatever the hell it's called, and meet your love of your life. You don't, MMA can lead to something like that. So
Go on
out
Friday.
there and yeah,
Yeah,
go on
tomorrow watch
socialize.
Bellator. Go out Friday, Saturday watch the UFC. So you have like it's a perfect sandwich of recovery, and then you have one night of debauchery in between. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and also the ratio is probably better now with COVID and people staying home more. So you might be able to get a good hit or two. So anyways, what we got next? We'll get like 2 more questions in and we'll wrap
perfect.
it up.
Here we go. Adam's asking about Bryce Mitchell getting his camo shorts finally. Why do other fighters never get their own custom shorts before?
Because the UFC is not fun, and they go into business with other entities that are also not fun. And let's think of the timing here. The Reebok deal is done in like a day and a half. Like it's almost over. Like we're sniffing the end. The windows are down, and they're getting ready to jump on out the window. Like it's over. That's why they're doing it. They're just trying to get one little piece of good faith in there to make Bryce Mitchell happy. Good on him. Like, to think that this is going to create this like whole change and that everyone's going to be able to be their own individual selves. And maybe with this new deal with Venom, they might be able to, but I seriously doubt that's going to happen. Moral victory for Bryce Mitchell. Make the man happy as a potential star. It's worth the risk to try to make him happy, in case, like if he goes out there and beats Andre Fili like he beat Charles Rosa, like it's worth the investment because this guy's going to just take off like a rocket. He's right there. He's so close to getting to that next level, to becoming like close to a star. He's on the road, especially with his virtual media day today, saying that he was going to like wear camo shorts anyways and fight all the security guards and do it illegally. Like that was like the best 60 seconds in MMA media of 2020. It was phenomenal. This guy's right there. Worth it. Totally worth it. It's just not to be, we can't praise the UFC for this. It's the end of the Reebok deal. This is just like one last that a boy before the deal comes to an end. But good on Bryce. I'm glad he got him.
Yeah, I'm glad he got him. I just think that they're ugly. I'm not a fan of them. When they came out, I thought, man, they could have done a better job than that. It almost just seems like they just found something on Google Images and just printed them on the shorts. And here you go, Bryce. They could have done a little better job designing them. But like you said, they don't want to be fun. Reebok is just in shambles, right? Like they started terribly with that press conference. And that was one of the most legendary press conferences of a shit show that you've ever seen in your life. And and everybody looked like a robot everybody looked like an iRobot. Like all the fighters when they came out with the kits on, they looked like iRobot, like from Reebok. I don't know, for some reason it seemed like that. But Reebok, it's over for them. Venom's coming in, and I don't think Venom's going to be much different. The only thing that's different is Venom won't give you shoes, and I think that's a big factor in these kits, right? Like, is having shoes. Like, you get a free pair of shoes, man. Who doesn't love a free pair of running shoes, man? But I don't think Venom. I've looked on their website; they don't sell shoes. They sell boxing shoes. I don't even know if they're called shoes. Maybe they're called boots or whatever. But yeah, it's just I don't know. Hopefully Venom does a better job of kind of like personalizing the gear, but I really doubt it. I think that they're gonna roll it out like factory work, and it's gonna be exactly like that. But yeah, I don't. Bryce, I'm happy for him, but man, I wish they would have gave Bryce a better design camo. But you know what? Bryce is probably going to be out there in the woods with the camo shorts on, hunting, and with just the camo shorts on. He should probably do a YouTube just off that. But it is what it is.
That's a great fight. Oh, yeah. That's a really good fight.
Yeah, it's an interesting fight.
Well, Tristan asking who you guys think is going to win, Tunley or Martin. I'm not sure if we touched on it yet, but I'll be doing a preview tomorrow. Today. Yeah, I'll be doing a long One Championship preview.
Skip that one. Let's skip that
Me and Chris,
one.
we're going to break that down, I think. So tune in later, Tristan.
Anything else?
I'm just confirming the time. I think we're good here. You guys, John,
right,
if you have any talking points?
Get into, the last 2 questions that I got for Mike. Okay, so the last question is we always try to get like your nominations for blank of the year. So like female fighter of the year for the UFC. There has been some interesting storylines throughout the years, and a lot of great fights and some great fighters that have emerged in the UFC. But who do you feel like is the female fighter of the year?
This is such a tough question because I know that like champions always sort of get that extra weight. Like it's almost like one win is almost equal to two. And then like someone who's not the champion has to win 3 to even get that nod. And Nunes only got 1 win this year. Shevchenko's only got 1 win this year. So it's kind of tough. So on it, like I ever since you sent me this question last night, I was like, man, this is a really good question. So there's 2 in my mind. Like, first of all, if Shevchenko goes in there and just rifles through Jennifer Maia and like finishes her in 35 seconds or like in the first round, it's kind of hard to deny her because she's had 2 finishes. Nunes has a decision win. It was a pretty dominant decision win. And I think many believe she's going to go in there and beat Megan Anderson and do it pretty decisively. So I would try to give Shevchenko the nod over Amanda Nunes. But if we're looking at things right this second, there's 2 on my mind. One is Amanda Ribas. I think she's right there. I mean, she's got 2 huge wins. No one in women's MMA in the UFC has gotten as much of a jump and a rise than Amanda Ribas has had in 2020. That's probably a more popular pick. My second pick, you got to put Lauren Murphy in this conversation. You have to do it. You have to. She's got 3 wins, all against ranked opponents. Well, actually, the Shakarova one wasn't, but still, to have the, as Mick Foley used to eloquently put it, and I know this isn't aligned to Lauren Murphy, to have the testicular fortitude to fly overseas on a week's notice and fight an unknown fighter who many believe was very dangerous and was a live underdog in that fight. She did everything perfectly. She had an A+ night on Saturday. She went in there, finished her opponent, did it pretty one-sidedly. Then she got on the mic and spit fire. And then she went in the back during the media scrum and spit even more fire. Like, and I've said this a few times, I'm going to say it again. Short of her actually getting on a private jet, flying to Valentina Shevchenko's house, knocking on her door and slapping her in the face, this night could not have gone any better for Lauren Murphy. So I think she's probably going to need another win to get to a title shot. I would give it to her now before the winner of Maia and Shevchenko. But if you want to throw her in there with Andrade, I'm totally fine with that. You want to book the Calvillo fight, that's fine too. But I think Murphy's in the conversation. I think Ribas probably edges her out just because of how popular she's gotten. But if we're looking at body of work and resume in 2020, Lauren Murphy's had the best year of anybody, hasn't she?
Yeah. Before last weekend, I was the train of thought that I had was Andrade. She goes in there and takes out the #1 contender. Devastating, just body shot, knockout, and she has that championship pedigree. She's a former champ, and I thought, yeah, let's push her. I like Maia, but man, I don't really think she should be taking on this title fight right now. I think she should at least fight somebody else. So I was like, let's push Andrade in there. Let's take Maia out, push Andrade. Let's have them fight each other. I think that's a great striking matchup, and Andrade has the power to kind of give Shevchenko a run for the money. And then Lauren Murphy goes in there, and what sold it for me is her post-fight press conference when she went in there. And she had one of the best post-fight press conference interviews this year. She spit fire, and it was just not like she was just making things up. She was like facts, like these are facts. Like you can't deny these facts. You know what I mean? And she just like broke it down. Like this is what it is, and this is why I should fight for the title. And I fully support it. And I think she would just hop in there right now, right? She would go in there in place of Maia. I think the UFC should, do Lauren Murphy a solid and push her into that position. I think she earned it this year with the wins that she's had. And I completely agree. Like Lauren Murphy, what if Lauren Murphy, that actually happens? We're talking about this right now. What if that actually happens and she goes in there and chokes out Shevchenko?
She's the fighter of the decade if that happens.
Exactly. Because she came out the gutter. She's like very similar to like a Michael Bisping to in my opinion, like the career that she's had. Yeah. You know what I mean? Very similar. You know what I mean? Like she goes in there, and if you stack up like the level of like Shevchenko versus Luke Rockhold, it's not, you can't even compare, man. Shevchenko's way up there, right? And if Lauren Murphy can go in there and beat and upset Shevchenko, man, she's like the fighter of the decade, man. like you said. But I completely agree, man. Like she is up there, man. I think like you don't have to give female fighter of the year to a champion. because they don't fight enough. They don't fight enough. Like, like it's just, I don't know, man. Like a lot of people, they just want to put that belt ahead of everything, right? And of course that belt is important, but man, sometimes some of these fighters, like if Angela Lee didn't get screwed over in a lot of her fights this year, Angela Lee would be in this topic too, man. She would be like, what, 5-0, right? I think she'd be 5-0 or 4-0 or whatever. And it's like, man, but because of like these judges, she's kind of got screwed a lot. But yeah, Lauren Murphy, great. Now the last thing is MMA Hall of Fame, not UFC. This question was UFC, but MMA Hall of Fame. James Lynch, the first one, he put in GSP because he's Canadian. Tom Taylor, he comes in. He's also Canadian, but doesn't go with the Canadian fighter. He puts in Ken Yamamoto into the MMA Hall of Fame.
Love it.
And for you, Mike, dead or alive, past or present, who would you put into the MMA Hall of Fame? It could be a coach. It could be a promoter. It could be a fighter. Who would you put in there?
This is another question that drove me crazy, but I think I spent so much time on the female question that I didn't give this as much thought as I wanted to. Only because we mentioned him earlier, and I feel like he doesn't get enough love. I'm going to give it to him right now. Jose Aldo. I'm giving it to Jose Aldo. And listen, is he like the greatest martial MMA fighter of all time? No. But I'm saying Jose Aldo because one, he deserves to be in this discussion. And two, I'm probably going to be the only one to say his name just because he's so overlooked in these conversations. I'm going to throw Jose Aldo in there as a representative in the featherweight division. He's the guy, best featherweight of all time, even over Max Holloway. I'm sorry, Max, you're the man, but Jose Aldo is the greatest featherweight of all time. I'm giving it to him just because he deserves it.
I love it, man. I love it. Like, Jose Aldo, yeah, I agree with you. I think he's the best featherweight of all time too. Like people overlook his resume. That dude was unbeaten for like how many years? Like, do you remember like what he did? Come on,
he beat the
Jose Aldo, great.
Off of everybody. He got flash knocked out by McGregor. I still would love to see if they ran that back, and that was just so ridiculous because the World Tour just messed with Aldo. Like, it really messed with him. Like, we haven't seen any like real world tours for UFC fights like since then. You know what I mean? Like, we haven't seen it since. And it's because like McGregor just rattled him so badly. Like, had they not done here we go in the rabbit hole. Had they not done the world tour and they just like did a straight build up to the fight, like would it have gone the same? I don't know. Like, I would have loved to see those two guys fight again. And
also, like that fight was delayed too. They did the world tour, I believe, and then it was delayed, right? The fight didn't happen. Was the world tour ahead of the second scheduled fight?
I think it was before the first, and then that was when Mendez came in, and then they did the other. Then they did it again in December. Yeah. But still, like, there's just so much history there, and McGregor's trying to like steal his belts in every country in the world. Like, I'd be pissed too. And poor Jose Aldo's just like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm trying to be respectful and be a martial artist, but this guy's trying to like steal my title belt off my table. He's trying to reach over Dana White's head and steal my belt. Like, he's just like, where am I? How am I supposed to handle all of this? But God,
yeah, he was in an episode of Black Mirror, definitely.
That's what Jose Aldo like, oh my God, this is insane. What am I doing here?
And you know what? Jose Aldo right now, he's fighting at bantamweight, but I wished he would have went to lightweight. I wish he would have just said like, I'm not going to cut the weight. I'm just going to go to lightweight and fight these guys. And then the McGregor fight would have been more possible. You know what I mean? Because I feel like Jose Aldo still has the skill set to beat a lot of the lightweights, in that division. It's hard to say the top 5, but man, he'll give a lot of those guys a run for their money. But
now he's going to fight Chito Vera, man.
Yeah. It's tough, man. And those weight cuts, I don't know when it's going to catch up to him, man. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do. But Mike, man, we just locked in 90 minutes. This is when we usually say goodbye, and I appreciate you, man, a lot. I appreciate your contribution to the sport, because I feel like a lot of people, they just want to hate on each other. You know what I mean? And you've always been a guy that has ever since I've ever had any contact with you, just been supportive, and all I can do is support you in everything you do. And then also you drive me to work harder. Sometimes I think like, man, maybe I should just quit. But then Mike will be the one, sometimes he'll give me the message like, hey, You better not quit. You gotta
Cut the
keep
shit,
going.
JHK. Let's go.
Yeah, so I always remember those things. I always remember those people, you know what I mean? And 100%, anything you need, you just message me, and I'm down to support whatever you're doing. Where can everybody find you, and you got anything interesting coming up?
You can find me at MikeHeck_JR on Twitter. I think that's probably like the best place. I'm like on other social media things, but whatever. Obviously I work for MMAfighting.com. Go doing a lot of different things. Got 3 shows on there as of right now. Gold caps. At least you get to watch the replay, my friend. Hour and 30 minutes of gold, baby. It's gold. What the Heck drops tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time. Got conversation with Gegard Mousasi, Jake Hager, Dustin Jacoby, who's fighting on Saturday, Miranda Maverick, who got a great win on Saturday at UFC 254. And I also spoke with one Johnny Campbell, the man whose ear almost fell off of his head on Friday night at Tora MMA 10. And to hear this guy talk about that situation with a smile on his face is pretty outlandish. Like, what a refreshing conversation that was with a guy who literally has 20 stitches holding his ear to his head right now. Pretty wild stuff. So that drops 10 a.m. And then, of course, we got all the other stuff, preview shows and post shows for all the events. We got on to the next one, which is our matchmaking podcast that drops every Monday morning. And then Tuesday mornings, we drop Between the Links, which Shay, we're going to have to get you on Between the Links at some point.
No, man, I cannot go on there,
it's
Mike.
not like
I'm going to
that
get
anymore.
destroyed. I'm going to get destroyed, man.
Yeah, it's one-on-one now. All right. And no Keith. Keith's on the show. We just have, it's one-on-one.
Keith is a machine, man. That guy's a beast. But yeah, going back to Johnny Campbell, man, that dude's an interesting character. On top of just having his ear almost ripped off, he is just I've interviewed him before. He's a character, man. Like I expect no less than a beautiful, phenomenal, disgusting, and exciting interview in that one. That's why, like I said, like, you guys got to watch that one. If you don't watch anything else, watch that one. That one is great. Yeah, man, you are very busy, and it's great, man. Nick, always good to have you behind the ones and twos, and out of Hong Kong. And yeah, man, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Make sure to subscribe, like, follow, share, blah 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 blah. Thank you so much, Mike. You're gold. Like,